Hi, welcome to for the Advocacy Media. You're watching the Journey Series video podcast. I'm Mark. I'm a brown man who's bald with glasses, black and white beard. My shirt looks kind of pink today, but it started off as orange. It's been through the dryer a few times. Um, and I have a brown background.
And I'm Crystal. I'm Mark's co-host, and I'm a white woman with brown hair and brown eyes. And today I'm wearing a red shirt, and I have a brown background. A home office.
And today we're going to be speaking with Samantha Maxwell and Allan about Samantha's book and her journey and all that good stuff. Hi, Samantha and Allan.
Hi,
Hello.
okay.
Welcome.
Nice to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Do you want to maybe just start with your visual descriptions for our blind and low vision audience, and then feel free to start telling us all about stuff.
Yeah. Um, I'm Samantha. I have brown hair and well, I'm wearing a pink shirt. So yeah.
I'm Allan. I have very short brown hair and a little facial hair because I'm 40 years old. I've tried to grow a beard many times and nothing really happens. So I've got what I have, a little bit of stubble. I'm a white British male, and we're both here in Wales.
Yeah.
So lovely. It's 4 o'clock there, correct?
It is.
4 o'clock on a
Wow.
very windy
Yeah.
autumn afternoon.
You guys are ending your day and we're just starting ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we
So,
usually just start off with you guys telling us a bit about your journey and how you got where you are right now.
Okay.
So go ahead.
Right.
Would you like me to
Yeah.
speak? So my name's Allan, and I met Samantha first of all when I was working as a publisher. I was publishing books for a publisher specializing in mental health at the time, and I came into contact with Samantha and learned about Samantha's story, and that's a story about life with cerebral palsy, or CP. We got to know each other and we've worked together. And during that time, we've worked together to publish Samantha's first book, which is CP Isn't Me. It's actually got Samantha in her wheelchair on the cover, actually.
Yeah.
So we did the artwork together with a photographer to actually represent Samantha. The first thing for me, really important to express for all of you watching and listening, is why I'm speaking. One of the things that is experienced with CP is difficulty in speaking. So for Samantha, it's very difficult to verbalize her thoughts in a conversation. And that's probably one of the core things that brought this about, isn't it? Because
it is.
Throughout Samantha's life, she's experienced this barrier where people have assumed, because she has a difficulty in verbally expressing herself, they've assumed, well, you must not be very intelligent. They've made huge assumptions about Samantha's life and Samantha's, individual way of life, based purely on the fact that it's harder for Samantha to speak than it is for some other people.
Yeah, I agree. It's awful, to be honest, the way that society treats, disabled people, to be honest.
And I think for you as well, because CP is a complex illness. It's not a single symptom and a single barrier. It's a very complex, and for everybody suffering, it's very different.
Yeah.
So the other thing for Samantha, of course, that's defined your life to the way people have treated you, but not you, is the use of a wheelchair.
Yeah.
Whereas society in particular sees Samantha as a wheelchair user. They label Samantha as a wheelchair user. They see the wheelchair before they see you, don't they?
They do. Everybody does. Everyone. And it's terrible. Yeah.
And what you've experienced from a very early age is the way society perceives you from what they see as a visible disability, let's say. And even more fundamentally, we've discussed this many times, the very nature of the word disability, it begins with a negative prefix.
It does.
So what you've discovered is that society constantly sees disability as a negative way of life. And for you, I guess COVID sort of brought it all to a head, didn't it?
It did. It did.
So you experienced lockdown, huge isolation, huge problem with mental health as a result. But you got through that, and it inspired you to write this book, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. That was the one thing that got me through lockdown, really. Writing the book. So, yeah.
I think for you, you've never perceived yourself as a victim, have you?
No.
You've always said, I'm just a young woman, just like any other woman. I just happen to live with CP.
Yeah.
But the perception you've experienced from outside has been almost the opposite, hasn't it? Is you're somebody with CP, and the fact you're a woman is just sort of just by the wayside, isn't it? So the book was a very first-hand account of what it is like for a young woman living with CP in a world that sees it very, very differently, a world that isn't really willing sometimes to see it, or sometimes just isn't able to.
Right.
So, yeah.
That a lot of the world, like we were alluding to before, they just have not been brought up to understand our disability and the things that entails. And so they have these perceived understandings and thoughts, negative thoughts about disability, and that really harms what we can do as humans in the future, and what we can do currently even, and we have to get to a place where we're able to explain these things and be able to, from different directions. Like all the people we have on our show is, here's this issue and here's this one, and we have these similar things that we have to deal with, but then there's separate. We all have different disabilities and different qualities, correct?
Yeah.
So, but if humanity, that the non-disabled community is able to see all these things combined, then maybe they can try to start to change perceptions, and that's what we're hoping. And I'm thinking that's probably what direction you're going in with your book too.
Yeah, it's well,
I suppose the book, if we look at it in different sections, you've got your early life where you look and reflect on education.
Yeah.
And what you've seen very early on is the segregation that happens within education. That if you're grouped into the category of disabled to a certain extent, you then begin to attend a disabled school. You get segregated from, let's say, mainstream, don't you?
Yeah.
And straight away, stigma is introduced. You've had times through your life where you've sort of gone in and out when you've changed levels at school.
Yeah.
But I think for you, probably the moment you've ever been sort of put into that disabled category at school, you've never lost that, have you?
No.
And then
no, it's always been there.
It's sort of like once you're marked, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
And that it works at a very subtle level for many children. I don't think children fundamentally, I don't think they discriminate.
No.
But they are taught that disabled people are different. They're taught that it's them and us. And that's one of the big things we need to move away from in how we perceive disabled people. You've returned to mainstream school.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been the same for you, has it? It hasn't been returning on an equal basis. And you had a very difficult experience with school because of that.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is there's very good education for all the people involved in education, the teachers, support staff. But it's often presented probably not from the perspective of the actual people that need it most of all. So a lot of people have done the textbook training, let's say, but don't really know the experience from your view, do they?
No, they don't. They don't have the lived experience.
They don't have the lived experience, but then they don't have that to draw on either sometimes. I think it is. Do you think it's changing for the better? Do you think it's going in the right direction?
To a degree. It's
slowly,
slowly, yeah.
Well, as I was saying before, it's a problematic thing generationally where they never saw us as capable.
No.
And as able to have these conversations or even go to the table. Separate from the issue of what is an equally terrible issue of accessibility of physically not being able to get to table, but also not having the people be able to notice that we are smart and we have solutions but we're not listened to because they weren't taught to give us the agency, that voice to do those things.
I agree. It's like as if we're put in the corner really and away from everyone else.
Something we've talked about in previous conversations is this: people feel compelled to help you. They feel you're in a wheelchair, you must need help. And actually it's not help that you ask for, it's respect. What you ask for is to be respected. I may walk on my feet, you may use a chair. We're both humans. We're both perfectly intelligent. You don't need help.
No.
You simply need people to acknowledge you may not be able to, let's say, access physically somewhere that I can access more easily. But it's respect first and foremost, isn't it?
Well, respect and equality, really. That's all that anything wants, regardless of ability.
Right.
So it's a very strange journey, but I'm hoping that it's getting there.
It'll get there.
Yeah.
It is frustrating, because you know all these things and you want to fix problems and but I think it's collectively the disability community getting together and working together to show these things and explain the issues and then give people intelligible things that they can go forward with, a new understanding of it.
And And I think for you, that's been very important in the field of employment, hasn't it? As you've progressed beyond education.
Yeah.
What you've found is, I suppose, a certain element of fear, if anything, isn't there, in employers?
Definitely.
But there's also not just the fear, it's the judgment, that there's the assumption that you cannot do a job as effectively or efficiently as, for example, I might. So they're baseless assumptions. Again, it comes back to that perception of intelligence, I suppose. That people don't look at Samantha, for example, as a normal candidate, as just another candidate applying for a job.
Individual.
They don't see you as an individual. They don't see you based on your qualifications. I believe you're more highly qualified than I am.
Well,
and why should you not be?
Yeah.
But people turn to me and say, but we'll take you.
Yeah.
You've proven for you creating your own employment. You're perfectly capable of working.
Well,
you've had employment. You've got your own little business.
Yeah.
You've proven that somebody with the desire to work is somebody with the desire to work, regardless of,
ability. And so we just need society to, catch up on that.
And then you've seen a lot of people sort of offer you a job, but not because they actually want to employ you, but because you feel it's more, they sort of feel they have to. That's your perception, isn't it? Sometimes.
Yeah. We talked about that too before, about that tokenism aspect, where people think they want to check a box. They want to be able to say to the government that we're doing this for the ADA, we're doing this, that we're a credible company because we're doing these things. But at the same time, they're not really doing it, nor are they making it accessible to do so.
No, they just like to say these things to sound and look good. Really, that's my view on these things. So
Right. There are certainly companies and different stores and businesses that they do everything they're supposed to be doing, but there are definitely big corporations and things like that, and there are other businesses too that do take advantage of it and do those things. And then as well, we have the people who turned a blind eye at it and even enable that.
Oh no, it's the same in the UK, to be honest. The same level of discrimination, ableism.
And I think it's a difficult on paper in the UK by law. The law is very favourable. But it's getting it from being a paper exercise to being an actual reality.
I've done a lot of research on so my research was more on Australia, UK, and America, on the accessibility and the work field and stuff like that, and the psychology of it too, to go even deeper. But it was interesting. But I think on that subject, what we're talking about now, it was pretty much the same issues in all three countries. And I'm sure there's more, but those were my focus at the time.
I think one of the key things in the UK is reasonable adaptation. So the law, as set out on paper, if I employ somebody disabled, I should make reasonable adaptations. But the problem is, for most employers, the first thing they think of then is cost. So if I chose to employ Samantha, I'm going to think, but I would have to pay for ramps, and that I'm going to pay for that. And even if I see beyond my initial misconception of
Yeah.
Samantha as a disabled individual, then I'm going to be thinking as a very often as an employer, but how much is it going to cost me? And I think that itself, a lot of employers think, oh, let's just not even go there, even though there's actually a lot of support out there.
Yeah.
I think for most employers are like, it's just too complicated, too risky, let's not do that.
Yeah.
But then there's the secondary area, and you see this in the sort of the municipal side of stuff as well, where adaptation has been made, but it hasn't been led by the people who need those adaptations. So there might be what is intended as positive action, but hasn't really been fully thought through with contribution from people like yourself, haven't you?
Yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that that whole thing and what we're talking about it's a really widely systemic problem which is internalized. Like, people have grown up thinking that it's a very hierarchical approach. Like, there are people on top, there are people on bottom, and if you're at this level, you know what's best, and know whether you're president or prime minister or whatever, what have you. And then everything is just kind of the system is just kind of built in such a way, like you have your education system, and teachers are above the students, and parents are above kids, and it's all sort of that's the whole thing that goes into everyone's thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And the problem is, what you've experienced, and it's reflected very strongly in the book, is disabled people seem to be very low on that hierarchy, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And that is so unfortunate because, as a society and being part of humanity, where we should be equal, it doesn't. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we should be, but we're not, because, society has this preconceived idea of us. So we're automatically put to the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. So
Yeah.
And it can be manifested even in the simplest ways, that if you go out with somebody, whether that's your family, whether it's myself or a carer, people will automatically talk past you in the wheelchair, and they'll talk to myself or to your mum or who you're with. This automatic assumption that I would be the person to talk now. Today I'm talking on your invitation. And for me, that's a tremendous responsibility. If somebody does ask you to speak or to represent or to advocate for them for whatever reason, that's a tremendous responsibility, but it's never something we should assume is simply the case. And that assumption is really dangerous and disrespectful.
It is. Yeah.
And going back to the people trying to help but not really listening to what, and not really letting the people who need the help dictate the terms. I think that's part of it anyways, is sort of maybe a lack of confidence in them trying to prove that this badge or this name tag is warranted. That title they have is, they have to prove that they're the expert, so they,
so that they can make themselves look good and feel better that they're helping or disabled people. Really, they're not.
And then we become more just an object to fulfill their ego.
Yeah.
What has happened, though, as a result of your book, is it's come to the attention of some of the local, let's say the local hierarchy, and even wider than that, the regional hierarchy, let's say.
Yeah.
But what you have seen is actually people realizing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we've seen in the city in which we live, some of the people responsible for working with the streets, from making them more accessible for other people to use, have actually come to you and said, look, let's actually listen to you.
Yeah.
You tell me where you experience the difficulty. So the book has actually really helped to elevate that message, hasn't it? And people are talking to you. Are they listening to you? How do you feel?
No, I think so. I mean, as well, I do think it's to a degree that people are starting to listen to me. There's still some kind of barrier, but I am starting to feel more, well, listen to, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. As I said before, it is frustrating, and you do have better days where it seems like you're making a difference, and other days it's totally the opposite of that, and like people are trying to tear you down, and it can be really frustrating. And I had a talk with some other advocacy people about the wear down of doing this, what we do. And then also what you're doing, that's also advocacy, and it can be exhausting, but it can also be extremely rewarding.
Yeah, I found that, to be honest. From doing this book, the level of interest I have from it, but then the actual, well,
so it's made some interesting connections, hasn't it, that you hadn't expected. So you were invited more recently to the football club. If anybody's seen it on Disney, we live in Wrexham. It's a very popular
what
is
it
at the moment.
What is it?
So
Welcome to Wrexham.
There's a documentary at the moment, Welcome to Wrexham.
Oh, okay.
And if you're American or Canadian, no doubt you'll be aware of it. It's
Okay.
very well marketed. So we live in Wrexham. That's where we are today.
Yeah.
But you actually had an invitation, didn't you, to the football club recently to go and actually experience the ground as a disabled person and understand and feed back on that experience. And that's something really great. You visited the Welsh government headquarters.
I have.
And again, they've actually stocked the book in the shop on there as well, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
But you've reached these people that before were unaware of your existence.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you've raised the profile of disability for everybody.
I hope so.
But the other thing that's happened, isn't it, as a result of this book, is this book, CP Isn't Me.
Yeah.
This was you looking out on life, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you reflecting your perception of life from where you are.
Yeah.
But you're now working on the second book, aren't you? Where people that have come to you saying, wow, I am inspired by your experience. Let's have a two-way conversation. So that new book is gathering perception
from other people in society, really, their thoughts and feelings on disability.
So you've actually been able to engage a really wide variety of people in society and say, this is how they are viewing not just CP, but disability. So it's creating a really interesting two-way conversation, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it focused on just the UK or just everywhere?
Everywhere, really. I've got places from America, Australia, involved in the second book. So
Awesome. Do you have any tentative release date or publish?
I did. Well, we did discuss the end of the year, but with everybody coming to me.
Yeah. It's getting there, but it's not there.
So what's been interesting for Samantha is the level of interest, actually, the number of people saying we would like to actually be involved in the book.
Yeah.
There's actually a good problem to
Yeah.
have. That it's actually for you, it's more people than you expected wanting to contribute, aren't there?
Yeah, so I'm still a bit we don't know when the second book's gonna be because all these people keep
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, what a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I mean,
amazed.
When you published this book, you had no expectation, did you?
No, none.
And I think it's been a really wonderful surprise to see how far afield it has reached, hasn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And I've had people as a publisher come to me and say, I've read the book, somebody in my family has CP, it's changed my understanding of my family member. I've heard other people say it's made me completely rethink the way my business operates. So it seems to be making an impact in the people that it reaches.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Keep us posted so we can post it on our site as a resource too.
Okay, thank you.
That's amazing how we in some ways we made a lot of progress as species. I mean, the internet has opened up a lot of doors where normally we wouldn't have doors open for us. And going back to this thought of a hierarchical system, it's stuff that a lot of us have done a lot of work to really address, and there have been a lot of good changes. But at the core of it, at the core of who we are as a species, we just want to have that power and control, and it's been ingrained in us growing up, and our parents and stuff, that sort of go into a country and take it over because the people who live there are less than you are, and that whole thing is like internalized and passed down from generation to generation, as has been used to create the systems that enable people to be in power that are in power now. And it's we can make a lot of change, but there's going to be some resistance to that because invariably they're going to realize, oh wait, these people are coming to change the way we're doing things, and we can't have that.
No,
so
but it's always going to be that resistance there, but as long as we keep fighting for change.
I think certainly in the UK, the survival of the fittest mentality is still very persistent, isn't it? And in a very literal sense.
Yeah.
And we assume that by being physically able under that hierarchy, you're automatically higher up, don't we? And it's still very much ingrained, whether that's subconsciously or consciously. And even if it's not intentionally taught, I think it is still conveyed that there is very much a survival of the fittest mentality, where essentially people like yourself are just sort of discarded at the bottom of the chain, aren't you? Really, that's
it. Yeah,
definitely. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. No, we were talking about the way the disability community is all banding together to do these things and to collectively on a intellectual level, instead of pointing fingers and saying that, and if you don't have the understanding of the generational biases that were implanted to us growing up by the government mostly, if you don't understand that, you're going to point fingers if you can't understand the psychology of what was happening to people,
Yeah.
and your whole thing is to point fingers and to blame, of course there needs to be blame somewhere, but it's not the general public. It's, like we talked about, the hierarchical, um, the bigger corporations and things like that. So it takes some big shoes to fill, I would say, to be able to work together and help people understand what we're dealing with, what we have dealt with, and what we can do in the future.
Ties into something you've mentioned in the book about the
Yeah.
media as well, and in some of the talks that I've attended with you, where there's been a big shift in the media, particularly television and sport, where, let's say, they've normalized disability to a degree. It's normal now to see disabled athletes, to see disabled TV presenters.
Yeah.
You still feel that, in a way, whilst it's normalized them, it hasn't necessarily built conversation, has it, really?
No.
In your view?
No, there's still like a barrier between society and what we see on TV and in media.
And then the media, I think, from your experience, doesn't necessarily present the reality of life disability, does it, to a degree?
No, it doesn't. It's just a polished version.
It's very much, well, some degree it's okay. If you want to, if you have a disability and you want to jump through the hoops and be whoever fit into our world, then we'll allow that, but we won't venture in, we won't allow you to be who you actually are. You have to conform to whatever system we have going.
Yeah, I agree.
And then if we talk about the word inspirational, and why a lot of people look at disability, the common things we do as inspirational. But if you would look back at like the media and what they portrayed people with disabilities that are doing amazing things as inspirational, well, on a psychology level, the word you're gonna have in your head when you talk to somebody disabled is maybe they're inspirational because they're doing things that you can't imagine.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I suppose the risk is, at the same time, that maybe there's a risk that media presents it as, well, actually, disabled people don't have some of the barriers they have. I mean, it's a very delicate balance, isn't it? That in your felt sometimes perhaps it slightly misrepresents the difficulties, sort of puts a glossy finish on it and doesn't really show behind the scenes what that person's maybe experienced to get to there, I suppose.
No,
sort of reflect on that, haven't you, in the past?
Yeah, no, it's like I say, it's always the polished version. It's never the true reality of,
Do you think disabled people, as they're presented, for example, on television, are representative of people with disability as a whole? Do you feel they are a good representation, or?
Not individually, because the disability is different. And this is what,
you've got very mixed feelings, haven't you, about the presentation in the media?
Again, it's getting there, but I feel like there's been a big conceptions about disability. Again, we get back to the generational what has been told. So how can they portray it correctly in the media Yeah, so we have to uh be able to explain to society the kind of give them a new narrative on disability.
I think as an example, if we talk about pathways, so if you and I start, let's say we start on the same starting line, and we both wish to pursue a career as a television presenter, let's say, so we start on the same starting line, but the fact is, there's a pathway for me that exists. There's an expectation of the pathway I would follow from where I am now to become, let's say, a TV personality. But I think for yourself, there's no clear pathway, is there? No. There's no clear pathway. So how would you go from A to B
without there being any obstacles? That's it. Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's a bad example because obviously, television presenters are a very select few.
Yeah.
But I think it's that much clearer for me to plot a pathway and say, well, this is how I'm going to achieve that objective.
Yeah.
Than it is for yourself.
Yeah. Definitely.
So for you, it's more of a question of luck at the hands of other people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. And it shouldn't be that way. Really.
And I think part of the narrative, I guess, in that finding that pathway, going back to what we were talking about before, about advocacy, sometimes people get confused. Advocacy, it sounds like complaining to them, right? And but that's part of the way that the people in power keep their power, because they change the meaning of words. So like whether you're someone of a certain race or a person with a disability or a woman trying to get to some certain level, the person who's in charge, in order to keep the status quo the way it is, they have to dismiss you by saying, oh, you're complaining too much about something that really isn't a thing. No.
You don't know how many times I've had that. Honestly, horrendous.
I can imagine the research and the interesting things that you probably found and writing your book, and the history part of it. It probably really opened your eyes, to Go ahead.
Yeah, it definitely has.
There's still that underlying sense of able people saying, well, you should be grateful, isn't there?
Yeah.
We've done something. You should be grateful. And I think sometimes they see advocacy as a threat, don't they, to that?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
honestly,
it comes back to respect, doesn't it? And the one thing I think for you that you say to anybody is, first and foremost, all you ask for is respect, isn't it? And that's at every level of this conversation, it comes down to respect, doesn't it? Respect for you as a human, as an individual.
Yeah. It's all that we want.
I think part of where that goes wrong is at the outset, people assume that they're in the right, or they know better.
Yeah.
And then when it starts from there, it's kind of it's not really a equal starting point.
No.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, I suppose, as society, we try to say we're all different, we're all unique, but then we still say, but I'm the model of normal, and everybody else off that is different. So we, in one way, we try and say the difference, but we have the benchmark of from where we define different, and that's still problematic, isn't it?
Right.
Is actually, if we say we're all different, if we're equal,
then
that's fine, but we still have this sort of starting point as it's all relative, isn't it?
It is.
And that's what we've got to move away from, isn't it? Really, is that sort of especially in the physical sense, that relative that
Mm.
that we still have this perception that's normal and everything else is different.
Yeah. Yeah.
We need to move away from that, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
For sure.
Samantha, what other projects are you working on?
Well, like we mentioned, I've got my second book coming out, so I'm not sure when, but it will be coming out hopefully soon, depending on how many people are involved. Yeah,
Yeah.
For you, it's very much a case of making sure the right people are contributing, isn't it? That making sure that you have a rounded view from society.
Yeah.
So the second book, I think, is your main focus right now, and you've been doing a lot of events and engagement with people, haven't you? And contributing to the conversation. So next month, or December, sorry, you're speaking to a group of dentists, aren't you?
I am.
So that'll be an opportunity for people in the dental profession get a little bit of insight into the world of people like Samantha, and that things like that. It's become a big part of what you do now, isn't it? Is having these conversations with people.
Anything else? No.
No.
It was once again a good interview. We really got to get a different referee. We talked about that the other day, that every guest we have has something different to bring to the table, and it turns into a really good interview. So I was ended up saying that in the end, that it was a great interview. But
Well,
thank you both for having us.
Thank you
for joining us.
Yeah.
Honest, thank you.
Okay. Have a good afternoon.
And you take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.